Well, good day and welcome to this live stream from Model Railroad Academy as we are continuing with part two of our series of Building a Craftsman Kit 101. And if you joined us last week, then you saw the kit that we started on, and as we started preparing the pieces and doing a little weathering work on that, and we'll show you exactly what we did there in just a moment. If you didn't see that, be sure and go back and check out that video after this one is finished, and you're going to want to see that so you can catch the whole series. I do want to remind you, as you're joining us here today, that when we're finished, we have a free resource for you right down below the video. You're going to find a banner link to a PDF of 10 household items that are perfect for scenery. There you're going to find some great ways to use some household items that I'm sure you have laying around your house right now in ways that will really help you in your model railroading and model building work. So be sure and check that out. I know that you'll enjoy it. That is completely free for you today. Also, as we go through the live stream today, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you and respond to those. Be sure and leave those in the black chat box right below the video here so we can make sure that we see them. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera down to the workbench here. We'll show you exactly where we left off last week. And then this week, we're going to be working on doing some painting and some weathered painting effects that are going to be a lot of fun and I think pretty exciting. So let me go ahead and turn the camera down here. We've got a few things to show you. First of all, last week I introduced you to this kit. This is the kit that we were doing from JL Innovations, and this particular one is a small section house, and of course we're working in scale today. And we started preparing this wood kit last week, and where we left off was this. We had just taken all of the parts and checked the sizes of the windows to make sure that all of the window castings fit. And we also used an India ink and isopropyl alcohol solution to weather the parts. And because I told you we're going to be doing a peeling paint effect, and we want something that looks like weathered wood underneath that peeling paint. We did that to all of our wall sections, our garage door, and then also these brace pieces, because these are going to be the pieces that actually serve as the holders that glue this thing together. Some of these will show, so we wanted to make sure that they were weathered as well. I'm going to actually go ahead and set these brace pieces apart because we're not going to be weathering them yet today. We will be weathering them ultimately in the same way we do the wall sections, but not until after we get them cut and we're ready to start thinking about assembly. So we're going to set those aside in my little box here for now. And today we're going to concentrate on both the wall sections and also the window and door castings. And the thing I didn't mention yet today is the fact that while this is a basic wood kit, the window and door castings are actually plastic. So today we're going to be doing some weathering effects, but we're going to be doing them on both wood and plastic, and we're going to use two separate processes for doing that. And we'll show you exactly how that works. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit to allow you to see what we're doing just a little bit better, because I want you to really be able to see what happens. Now, this section house, what we're going to do is we're going to paint the wall sections white. And then all of the trim, so the window and door castings, we're going to paint a green color, and I'll show you exactly that in a minute. This one piece right here, and I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's got a slightly different texture to it than the wall sections. That's because it is actually like a garage door, and I'm going to paint it the same color as the window and door casting. So it's going to be kind of the oddball. I'm going to use the process that I use on the wood, but I want it the color of the plastic. And so to keep my color straight, I'm going to move it over here onto my little handle, just stick it to that piece of tape. That way I can remember what is getting what color of paint. But we're going to start with the wall pieces first today. And I'm going to, I think, leave them on this paper towel just because it'll be a little easier for you to see. To create a peeling paint weathered effect on wood, I have a great process that I want to show you today, and it involves using a couple of different products. One of them, let's see if you can see this, is white mineral spirits. This is just odorless mineral spirits. This is a quart can you can buy at any hardware store or big box store like Lowe's, Home Depot, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be a key component to this process today. And then for the paint, for the process that I'm using here, I'm going to use just an inexpensive craft paint. In this case, a white paint by Art Deco, but any of these that you can pick up at any art store or at Walmart. Inexpensive craft paint. Now, normally for a model, I would prefer to use a model paint, which is a little different from this because it's thinner, and B, it has a much smaller pigment than these typical craft paints do. But for this particular instance, I need a paint that is thick in order to carry out the process that we're going to show you today. So this kind of an acrylic paint, a craft paint, will work great for what I'm going to show you today. And again, I'm using white. I'm also going to need maybe a little bit of a surprise, some good old-fashioned Scotch tape. I like the what they call the invisible tape. I think the amount of stickiness you get from it works really, really well, but really probably about any kind of a Scotch tape will work well for this. So what we're going to do, first of all, I've got there's just a jar lid here that I've used for a container, and I've got a little bit of my mineral spirits in this jar lid, and I'm going to take just a typical paintbrush, and I want to coat all of these wood parts with just a nice coating of the mineral spirits. Now that's clear, so you may not even be able to see that other than it might show up shiny. I don't need to leave it standing, dripping wet. I just need to wet it down with the mineral spirits. And what this is going to do is this is going to keep the paint, whenever I apply it in a few moments, from fully adhering to the wood. And that's going to allow me to create my peeling paint effect. And, if you don't get this on perfectly even, that's actually better because paint rarely peels in an even fashion. And so, we want to be able to have it peel in a way that looks normal and natural. Okay. And we're going to let that just dry for a brief time. I'm going to come back and do my garage door a little bit later, just because I don't want to deal with 2 hours of paint. While that's drying, I don't want to let that dry completely. I just want to let it kind of dry to the touch and soak in just a little bit. While it's doing that, I'm going to get a little of my craft paint. And again, I just got another container lid that'll work for a palette. And that's, at least 5 times more paint than I need, but that's okay. Put a little paint on there. And now these, I can tell already, instead of being shiny like they were wet, they're dull. So those are ready to be painted. It's just that quick. And I'm going to take this and apply a nice liberal amount of paint to these. I want to cover them completely. I don't want to get big globs of paint in the windows, and that's always a bit of a danger when you're using this thick paint. So you want to be careful about that. But you want to put it on. You want to get a nice heavy coat, and in fact, doesn't hurt sometimes to let that dry for just a minute and then come back and put on a second coat. I don't want to leave pools of paint on my parts, because that's going to fill in my detail of the clapboard, and that's going to hurt the look of the structure in the long run. So just a nice even coat. Trying not to get much paint on the edges of these pieces, because that's where we're going to be gluing later whenever we go to assemble this. By the way, assembly will be what we'll be starting to do, doing primarily next week in our series. So you'll want to be sure and be a part of that. when you're demonstrating, it's nice if those pieces would just stay still by themselves, but they don't always do it. And I'm going to go back over like this piece here, starting to dry to the touch. Just want to make sure I got a nice coat, because the paint that we leave on, we want it to look like it was fully covering. So just going to apply a little bit of a second coat. Again, I didn't thin this paint at all before I put it on, so this paint is very thick. Here I got a little paint on the insides of my window, and if I leave that, I'll have to just sand it out later, so we just will remove it now as much as we can. Now, you'll notice I've done about half of these pieces. I'm not going to do them all at once, just because I don't want to, I want to do this at just the right time interval. In this case, I want to let this craft paint dry to the touch before I do the next step, but I don't want it to dry completely, or it will ruin my ability to do what I want to do and get the effect that I'm looking for. Just touching this up to make sure I don't have globs of paint in the openings. Okay, those look pretty good. We're going to let those wood pieces dry for just a few minutes. We're going to come right back to them. But while they're drying, we're going to turn to our plastic window and door castings and take a look at them for just a few minutes. We want to do a similar effect, a peeling paint effect to these parts, but because they're plastic, we need a different process for doing that. There are two ways that you can do that on plastic. One is to use hairspray, or in my case, I'm using what's called chipping fluid. There are several different companies that make this. This is from Ammo by MIG. But there are several companies that make similar things to this. And what this is a coating that I'm going to put on my windows and doors, and then it's going to allow me to create a chipping paint effect after I paint it. So I'm going to start off just by applying this. And again, you could do this with an airbrush, and it works really, really well. But you can also do it with a paintbrush. And again, in my case, I don't want to do them all at once. I don't want things to get too far ahead of me. But I'm going to just work on these two doors, I think, to start off with for demonstration today. And I just want to put a nice, liberal, fairly even coat of this chipping fluid on there. Again, I know this is clear, so you may not even be able to see that, but you can see that I'm applying it to the surface of that door. And again, we're going to let that dry for just a few minutes, and then we'll come back to the effect for those parts. I think maybe some of these are getting dry enough to the touch that we can begin doing our effect. I'm actually looking and seeing, I think I want to put a little more paint on. This one here the paint seems to be awfully thin. So I'm going to just continue to add one more coat. Again, we're going to be peeling the paint, so it doesn't have to be perfect as if we were painting and leaving a brand new paint job on a building. But I do want it to be covered enough that it looks like it was really painted. That will really accentuate the peeling paint effect, especially in smaller scales like N scale, such as what I'm working with here today. The color of paint here really doesn't matter. You could do this with any color that you want. The important thing is to get those mineral spirits on the wood in a little bit, but not dry. And that is going to, like I think I said a few moments ago, that's going to it's going to help allow the paint to partly adhere, but not fully adhere to the wood. I don't want to apply the paint so thickly that it begins to destroy the detail of the wood, I think, like I said before. Okay, The next step in this process, again for this peeling paint effect, uh, is where our Scotch tape comes in. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a piece of Scotch tape. Oh, I want it to be the length of whatever wall I'm working on. Um, Move these over. We'll work with this wall first. And it looks like it's pretty dry to the touch. Not cured, just dry to the touch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my tape on that wall, press it down a little bit, and what's happening is the paint is the tape is sticking to the paint. And then I'm going to peel it off real quick, and we're going to need to do this multiple times. And you're going to use more than one piece of tape too, because pretty quickly as your paint sticks to that tape, it's going to stop being sticky. So come on here again and press that down on there and peel it off. And I think that bit of tape's not the best. Let me get this other roll. See if we can do better with it. Press it down on there and just peel it off. And you can begin to see the little, let me zoom in a little more for you here. Hopefully. You begin to see the little bits of places where the paint is beginning to peel away because it's sticking to the tape and the tape is taking it off. This tape isn't as sticky as I normally would hope. There we go. That's beginning to peel a little bit. May actually try a different tape because I feel like this isn't as sticky as I normally would like. I also have some painter's tape here. Now I want to be careful doing this with painter's tape because painter's tape is pretty sticky, so I'm going to just handle the painter's tape a little bit, get a few of my fingers oils on there. That will help it not be quite so sticky. And we'll try the same process with it. Stick it to the piece and then peel it away. And every piece that I do, again, just doesn't stay sticky very long once you get a little bit of that paint on it. Let's try this wall here. There, we got a nice bit of peeling paint on that one. Yeah. Do one more. You can see on the tape how much of that paint it kind of peeled off of the boards. I'll do one more here, and then I'll get this up close so you can see what it looks like. You don't want to overdo this, just until it looks like you've got kind of the peeling paint effect that you're looking for. And I actually think that wall looks pretty good. I'm going to turn around and try to get this up close, and hopefully I can get my camera to focus on it. And get my camera, a hand behind it here. Here we go. Focus, camera, focus. Yeah, I don't know. See if we can do this manually. Really want you to be able to see that. I don't know if I'm making it any better or worse. But now that it's white, let me set it down here on this brown. I think you can see there that peeling paint effect where the paint is peeled off of the highlights of the board. It gives it that very weathered look. Here's the first one that I did. Not quite as peeled on it. I need to do these other walls real quick before they dry too much. Oh, you see that really peeled really well the very first time. See how much paint is on the tape? And again, if you look, I hope you can see that. That peeling paint effect. I'll do these other two really quickly here. timing is kind of everything here. You want to peel that paint when the paint is set up enough that you're not peeling it all off, but not so dry that that it doesn't want to peel at all. And there, we're getting that. Set those here, and hopefully you can kind of see the effect. I like this one a lot. This one here didn't do as much as I would like. And that's working better. Okay, there we go. I hope you can see that. I think you can see that. So, okay, that gives you a sense of how we do that on wood. And again, you create a nice aged effect on the wood that way. Let's look at the plastic parts now. My chipping fluid has had time to dry. I think I'm going to look here real close. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is dry. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in and paint these parts with our paint. And here I'm just using a regular craft paint. And in this case, I've got some old poly scale paint still left around. This is a Depot Olive. It's a nice railroady green kind of a color. And just going to put just an average coat of paint on those. Got a lot of paint on my brush there. And of course it's plastic, so when you're painting plastic with a brush, naturally it doesn't always want to stick real well. You can get some brush strokes in there, but we're going to let that, again, just dry a little bit to the touch and add a second coat before we work on creating the chipping effect here, the peeling paint effect. The windows and doors, I don't want to peel quite as much as I did like the walls, but I still want to get that look of an old building that maybe hasn't been maintained quite as well for a while, and paint is deteriorating a little bit. I'm going to blow on that just a little bit to get it to dry quickly. Then I'm going to apply a second coat. I think I'll go across for this coat. There we go. Got a nice coat of paint on those. We're going to, again, let that just air dry for a few minutes. I want it again to get just dry to the touch, like we did with our acrylic paint on our wood parts. Again, I'm going to blow on that just a little again. I know why you tuned in was so you could watch paint dry today, but we're going to hopefully have an effect here that'll be interesting in just a moment. This paint, again, it dries pretty quickly, so it doesn't take very long to get it. And as we did with the white, we don't want that to dry completely. We want it to just dry to the touch, and then we're going to peel it. And what happens here is that fluid that I applied first, the chipping fluid, serves as a bond inhibitor to the paint, so it doesn't stick completely to the plastic, and then that allows it to chip and peel off in bits as we work it in a little bit. But it doesn't all come off. It comes off in an uneven manner, and then but we can create a nice peeling paint effect in the meantime. We're getting close to dry here. Just give it another few seconds. This is the fun part of doing a project like this live, is sometimes you've got to let these things happen in real time. Next time when we come together next week, we're going to start assembling this, as I think I said earlier, and we'll actually begin to see our building come together. While that's drying, let me come over here and see if we have anything in chat. Um, Okay, and I think it's Ambi. It's saying, why not put the wall sections on the blue tape as well? And the answer is, I certainly could have done that. If you watched last week, I did that for the sake of keeping them separate, and because because the plastic parts I painted, and the wood parts I actually stained last week with an India ink solution. But yeah, I certainly could have put them on the blue tape on a handle as well. It probably would have made my life a little bit easier, as a matter of fact, especially today, as I was having trouble getting them to stay still. Um, let's see, what else here? I'm going to scroll back up. Larry says, my parts are always moving when I paint them. I now use a toothpick to hold them down while I paint them. That's a good tip, Larry. That's a good idea. Something that I use, I'm actually going to be using it a little bit too. You can use toothpicks, or if you use micro brushes to do any painting or applying, other kinds of anything with oil, whatever. When that micro brush is used up, you can take the little end, the brush part, and just twist it off, and you're left with this nice plastic pointy applicator, which is again good like a toothpick. You can use it for holding parts down. In my case, we're going to use it for peeling some paint in here in just a few minutes. Um, and that looks like what we have at the moment. Okay, looking back, and I think our paint looks like our paint is pretty dry to the touch. Again, not cured, but dry to the touch. Now what we're going to do is this fluid here that I applied to begin with. As well as the hairspray. If you use the hairspray technique, it works exactly the same if you use hairspray. They're both water soluble. So I'm going to take my little paintbrush, and this is a somewhat stiff brush, and I'm going to just dip it in some water. I've got just a little container of water over here, and I'm going to apply a little bit of water to the surface of these, and we're going to kind of let it sit there for a little bit. And then I'm going to come back. I'm going to use this applicator that I had before and just begin to pick at that paint. And already pretty quickly, you see how that kind of came a little bit loose, and you kind of get that peeling paint effect. Now, you want to make sure you move your whatever you're doing the peeling with in the same direction that you would want the paint to peel. So, like if you think about a wood grain, if the paint would peel with the grain, then you want to move your pick that way. See, like this, up and down in the middle sections, but then these cross pieces on the bottom of the door, the grain would go across. So I'll kind of pick my way across. There we go. And again, we have this kind of primer color underneath. So as that paint removes, we begin to see just that primer color show through, and I can kind of dry some of that off. Now, if you happen to get a spot, let me hold this up here so hopefully you can see it. If you happen to get a spot where you peel too much, like I did right there, we can let this dry and come back and touch that up if we peeled a little too much as well. We can also do this with a stiff brush. This is the paint brush I was painting with a while ago, and if I brush across that, there you can. I think you can see it's beginning to peel just a little bit, which is what we want. We don't want to peel off large sections. Again, especially if you're working in scale and smaller scales. The beauty of this is I'm getting just a little bit of peeling along the edges of the wood, which is very much how this would tend to work, and not peeling right in the center of the board so much as I am along the edges, and just creates kind of a weathered highlight look. Um, All right, I think that's enough for that. I'm going to just dry those a little bit with this paper towel. I'm just going to blot them. And there we go. We get a nice aged paint look, and I think it's going to look really, really well. I got that one spot right there that maybe peeled just a little too much. I may want to touch that one up a little bit, but the rest of that just gives a little bit of a peeling paint effect. And I'm going to duplicate that on all of these windows and door frames as well. Just peeling the paint a little bit so it looks like a building that's been left in a little bit of disrepair. Okay, and that's how we weather our structure. And again, next week we're going to take all of our weathered walls. I'll finish these up so that we have them all weathered in exactly the same way. This door here, this garage door, I want it to be. I just popped it right off there. I want it to be this same green color, but I'll use the same effect that I used on the white because it's wood. But I'll do it exactly just the way I've just shown you. And then next week we'll be ready to start actually assembling our structure, and that's when things get exciting. I'm going to look here just to see if we have any more comments. I don't see any new ones. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera back up here, and I'll zoom out a little bit because I'm really close. I want to thank you for joining us in our second of this 4-part series of building Craftsman Kit 101. And again, if you've never worked with wood kits, with Craftsman kits before, they are fun kits to do. It's a little different. Some of the techniques are a little different than if you're used to working with plastic. But especially with some weathering techniques like I've shown you today, and the fact that nothing looks more like wood than wood does, they can be exciting kits to build. It can be a lot of fun, and can also make really, really good looking structures, whether you're making a new structure or a structure that looks old on your layout. So I hope you'll give some of these a shot and give some of these techniques a try as well. Well, again, thank you for joining me. I hope you all are staying well and staying safe. Before you leave the page, be sure and go down and check out that free PDF down below, 10 household items that are perfect for scenery. I know that you'll enjoy it as well. And until next week, hope you all have a great weekend.